Here, we're opening our video with a view of the Earth taken by the Himawari 8 satellite, the Japanese Space Agency, in geosynchronous orbit above the Earth, above Papua New Guinea. Okay, this particular scene was filmed on June 8th of 2016. Hello friends, Dr. Jim Daly here from Astronomy for Change. As you all know by now, if you follow our activities and our mission, we're largely an educational organization whose goal and aim is to lift society up, to teach and educate, specifically focusing on science generally and astronomy specifically as a vehicle to do that, to teach the truth about science, the efficacy of science, and how strict adherence to science is going to be a force, generally a force for good for society and going forward and so forth. Okay, so we're largely an educational organization. Now, there's a phenomenon that's occurring as of late, and it's growing in its size and scope, whose substantial growth and proliferation has been made possible through the use of the internet, specifically YouTube. And this phenomenon is the phenomenon of the flat Earth. There are people who believe the physical geometry of the Earth is that of a flat disk. I've taught astronomy and physics for almost 20 years. Okay. You don't have to be a modern day scientist or astronomer to know that the Earth is not flat. It's an ancient creation myth that was laid to rest almost 2,500 years ago. We're going to get into those details a little bit later. Okay, I'd like to start now, in the present moment, and try to concentrate on some of those on both sides of this discussion. It's not even a discussion. It's not even open for debate. The science is settled. There is no more discussion. It's a closed discussion and has been for over 2 millennia. The Earth is not a flat plane floating in space. Okay, the empirical evidence that can be assembled and produced by anyone with a camera. You simply go outside at night on a tripod, you point your camera at the North Celestial Pole at Polaris, open the shutter for an hour, you're going to see star trails. You can do that. Change your latitude. The height of the pole star above the horizon is an indication of your latitude, and so forth. You can repeat that in the Northern Hemisphere and in the Southern Hemisphere. Occam's Razor, named in honor of William of Occam, a scholastic philosopher who lived in the 13th to 14th century, stated it quite simply. The simplest explanation tends to be the correct one. Of two competing theories, the simpler explanation of something that's observed is the preferred one. So if we see star trails on our images after leaving the shutter open on our camera for an hour, 5 hours, or even 24 hours, but you can't do that because the sun will rise and ruin your picture. But if you could leave your camera open 12 hours, you can do this in the vernal autumnal equinox. You have 12 hours of darkness. You're going to see a semicircle of an arc if you leave your camera open for 12 hours, pointing towards the North Celestial Pole or the Polaris pole star in the Northern Hemisphere, or the South Celestial Pole in the Southern Hemisphere. You're going to see an arc that's 180 degrees in angular size, in angular dimension, 180 degrees. All right. That indicates that you're standing on something that's spinning. That is proof positive that the Earth is rotating. That the altitude of the pole star or the North Celestial Pole or the South Celestial Pole is dependent on your latitude or your separation in angle from the equator, the imaginary line that divides the Earth into the northern and southern hemispheres. That your latitude depends on your location north or south of that equator, and therefore the height of the pole above your northern horizon or southern horizon, for our friends in the southern hemisphere, also suggests quite strongly that you're living on a sphere. Okay, getting back to Occam's Razor, the simplest explanation tends to be the correct one. the equator. .40 north latitude. There is a growing body of individuals who have, for one reason or another, decided that everything that we've been taught, all these, our entire scientific foundation is based on lies and conspiracies. They blame NASA for some of this. NASA was formed in October of 1958 as a civilian space agency. Okay, prior to that time, there was no NASA, and a lot of these ideas were formulated over 2,000 years ago with the ancient Greeks, moving forward, steadily improving our ideas and our knowledge until we arrive at the present day. We've written extensively. There's at least 4 articles on our web portal. We'll start with this one here, "The Earth is Flat and Other Nonsense." Now, I wouldn't normally write about such things, and this is me speaking in the first person, as there is so much to be concerned of as of late. It might seem trivial by comparison to talk about this, but it's a growing problem because, let me continue on. It might seem trivial on its face, yes, but it bespeaks a deeper problem with grave implications if left unchecked. And here's the problem. Opinions and beliefs become truth, and a denial of objective reality, the outcome. Okay, unchecked and unvetted content on the internet is largely to blame for this phenomenon. But so is our educational system and the mainstream media, who give these other voices, give these other ideas and these long since debunked ideas a legitimacy that they don't deserve. Now, in the present day and age, the internet age, anyone with a computer or a mobile phone has a voice. And in a democracy, that's always a good thing, but not so when your beliefs and opinions, not objective truths, affect policy or legislation. Okay? In a recent conference by Flat Earth adherents, entitled the Flat Earth Conference, there was over 1,000 people in attendance. Carl Sagan warned us about this in one of the last works that he published before his death, entitled "The Demon-Haunted World and Science as a Candle in the Dark." Okay? Now, Carl warned us about this, of exactly what is happening today and how reliance on science, reason, thought, and collaboration is the antidote to a society that has quite literally gone mad. Okay? Are we citizens of a modern progressive society, educated in science, allowing our actions to be governed by science and reason, or are we to remain slaves to ancient mythical demons and conspiracies? Okay? So that's a great book by Carl Sagan, "The Demon-Haunted World, Science as a Candle in the Dark." Okay, now, I'd like to turn our attention to a number of the individuals who are fighting the good fight in this regard. One of them is this YouTuber, Sci-Man Dan. Sci-Man Dan has a program every Friday called Flat Earth Friday. In yesterday's episode, he's talking about a smart flat earther who was not happy. Now, rather than me speak for Sci-Man Dan, let's play an excerpt from his video.
Welcome to 2021. Happy New Year, everyone. One of the funniest things we looked at last year was the flat earther that believed that humpback whales proved a flat earth.
According to this article from the Daily Mail, a whale's song can be heard by another whale 4,000 miles away.
Well, he is back, and he's not happy that we all think that he's a little bit thick.
Well, I have a bachelor's, a Juris Doctorate, and a master's, and many other flat earthers also have advanced degrees.
That does not give him a pass on holding a wrong idea of what was his bachelor's degree in, what was his master's degree in. Having a Juris Doctor doesn't make him an authority on opining about some very basic tenets of science and astronomy and the physical geometry of the Earth.
We have PhDs, engineers, pilots, military professionals, lawyers, surveyors, and teachers.
Many of whom may not be, it's sad to say, but that's just the fault of our education system, that there are such individuals with advanced degrees who actually hold the opinion that the Earth is flat. That speaks really very badly. It speaks really poorly for our educational system.
Okay, so maybe we have the same formal education, but maybe we flat earthers are just ignorant of the heliocentric model. Surprisingly, nearly every flat earther knows more about the heliocentric model than your typical ball earther. We're going to have a little quiz here.
Yes, it's that time in the video where we pit our wits against the big brain flat earther who is adamant to show us all that we are wrong. Let's see how we get on, shall we?
Here we go.
In heliocentric dogma without looking up the answers. Question 1. How fast does the ground of the Earth allegedly rotate at the equator?
The Earth rotates at 1,600 kilometers per hour at the equator and decreases with latitude to the North Pole. So let's hear what this speaker says here.
Easy.
A 15 degree per hour drift.
Ah, thanks, Bob. Yes, 15 degrees per hour.
And it is, in fact, 15 degrees per hour rotation for the Earth. 24 hours in a day times 15 degrees is 360 degrees.
How fast is the alleged Earth's orbit around the Sun?
30 kilometers per second. And that's easily calculated. By simply equating Newton's formula for universal gravitation and centripetal force, you can calculate the... Solving for v in the last expression, we obtain 29.8 kilometers per second for the Earth's orbital velocity around the Sun, where g is the universal gravity constant, m is the mass of the Sun of 1.99 times 10 to the 30th kilograms, and a is the Earth's average orbital semi-major axis of 150 million kilometers, or 1 astronomical unit.
The Earth moves at a velocity of approximately 30 kilometers per second.
66,600 miles per hour.
Well, yes, same thing.
Question 3. How far away is the Sun purportedly from the Earth?
At the time of recording, the Sun is approximately 147,100,000 kilometers from Earth.
93 million miles.
Close enough. 3 out of 3.
Question 4. How are seasons caused according to the heliocentric model?
That would be the axial tilt of the Earth combined with its elliptical orbit around the Sun.
Because the Earth is tilted.
That will do. We're on fire here.
Question 5. How many degrees is the alleged axial tilt of the Earth?
23.4 degrees, good sir.
23.4 degrees or 66.6 degrees, depending on how you want to view it.
Next, I'm going to let this individual speak for himself. And I'm not going to advertise his YouTube channel, lest I promote his ideas and his channel. So here we go.
Hello everyone. The point of this video will be to address one of the newest claims from the Globe propagandists, that YouTuber, Mr. Sensible...
Globe propagandist. That's funny. That's rich.
...was able to film the supposed curvature of the Earth with a high-altitude balloon at 127,000 feet.
The Earth's curvature is clearly visible in this. So I don't know what the complaint is. So let's continue anyway.
I'm seeing this bogus ball earther claim a lot lately, and so I feel compelled to address it. First of all, kudos to Mr. Sensible for getting his balloon up to 127,000 feet. That's pretty good.
You can see at the top of the screen the different views from the balloon at this altitude. Looking up, looking at more wide-angle view, you can see the definite curvature of the Earth, even along the bottom here, along the bottom of the screen, compared to the horizontal flat line. You can definitely see the curvature.
I actually hope more people will continue to send up high-altitude balloons. I think it's beautiful. Of course, if the Earth was spinning at 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, then Mr. Sensible's balloon should have landed over 1,000 miles to the west.
Okay, that is patently false. And this individual who claims to have a bachelor's degree, a high school physics student, can debunk what he just said. I'm going to, by way of answering this, by way of addressing this particular statement that this individual just made, I'm going to go through the first section of a lecture that I do that discusses these very specific ideas, these very specific concepts. And I think that's probably the best way to proceed. The Copernican Revolution and the Ascent of the Newtonian Universe. In 1687, Isaac Newton published his Principia Mathematica, in which it was a compendium of everything that he had published and studied up to that point. His development of calculus, his observations and theories on the natural world and what he observed, and his ideas are a fundamental foundation for our present-day science in many aspects. Undergraduate physics students are taught his ideas, undergraduate physics with calculus, and one of the body of knowledge that was one of the bodies of knowledge that was published in his Principia was his 3 laws of motion, which we'll get to. Okay, going back though to the early period, the Greeks. Let's take a look at some of these. Homer, around 800 BCE, okay, depicted the Earth as exactly what the flat earthers think, that the Earth is this flat plane floating in space with a protective dome over the top. Okay, that was almost 3,000 years ago. Okay, moving forward, Aristotle, 400 years, about 2,400 years ago, proposed the first coherent model of the universe. That was the progenitor of the geocentric model that prevailed for more than 2,000 years. Okay, we're going to see which one of the ancient Greeks actually started discussing a new idea, the idea that, maybe the sun is at the center, not the Earth. Okay, here's another example of the flat Earth idea, the idea of a floating landmass in the vacuum of space, covered by a protective shield, protective dome. Okay, this is the typical geocentric model with the Earth at the center and all the other planets and all the objects in our solar system in orbit around the Earth, with the stars located along the outer rim. That was the geocentric model. Okay, and that brings us to Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. He's famously quoted as saying, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." And he likens himself to a child playing on the seashore and diverting himself, kind of distracting himself from the great picture that laid out in front of him as the ocean. He's using the ocean as a metaphor, and he himself as a child playing on the seashore. That was all put together in his Principia, and along with his universal law of gravitation. In Principia, there was a compendium of all his work. The calculus, differential calculus was in there. His 3 laws of motion, and the universal law of gravitation, published in 1687. It's still a fundamental foundation of modern physics. Much of what we're taught, and much of what I teach to my students, is much of what Newton was contained in Newton's Principia. Okay, now getting back to the incorrect statement made by the individual in the YouTube video. Newton's laws of motion. The first, an object at rest tends to stay at rest, and a motion tends to stay in motion, okay, with the same speed and the same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. Said differently, the state of an object remains unchanged in the absence of an external force. Okay? This is often referred to as the law of inertia. and states that the forces acting on an object are balanced. And if there's no force, there's no acceleration. So force comes first and then the acceleration. It doesn't work the other way. Acceleration is how the velocity or the change in position with time changes. Okay, and in the simplest sense, it's the change of speed along a straight line. Okay, let's take the example of someone riding in the flatbed of a pickup truck. Okay, somebody's sitting in the back. The pickup truck is riding along on an open highway in one direction, in a straight line. The individual throws a ball up in the air. What do you suppose happens to the ball? The ball is going to do what? Is it going to fall behind you, or is it going to come down straight, right down on top of you, or you're going to be able to catch the ball? Now, once you launch the ball straight up, that ball has two motions. It has a motion in the vertical direction, which is controlled by gravity exclusively, and another motion that's in the y direction, and in the x direction, according to this diagram, okay, it has a horizontal velocity. Now the ball is still moving with that horizontal velocity, regardless of whether or not you threw it up above your head or not. It's still traveling in the same speed as it left your hand in the horizontal direction. So it's going to come down and land right in your hand, right in your lap. So what that individual said in the video, let's go back to it, play it over.
But it didn't.
We'll repeat that.
Without at the equator, then Mr. Sensible's balloon should have landed over 1,000 miles to the west.
Incorrect. All other things being equal, and neglecting air resistance and wind, the balloon will come straight back down where he launched it. Why? Because the balloon still has the rotational velocity of the Earth as it left the ground. The same exact thing as in our example right here. The arc is parabolic in nature, okay, because the ball in its vertical ascent is under the influence of gravity, and it's changing. It's accelerating, slowing down. As soon as you launch the ball, it starts to slow down, reaches a maximum altitude, and starts to drop back down again. The time it takes to go up is exactly equal to the time it takes to return to your hand. Meanwhile, the truck has moved a certain distance in the horizontal direction. The ball is still moving at that same speed. Hence, this individual who claims to have been educated, has advanced degrees, fails to understand that. Okay, so let's continue.
But it didn't. Without question, Mr. Sensible proved that the Earth is indeed stationary.
He did no such thing. The Earth is not stationary. The Earth is rotating and moving around the sun. We're going to continue this series because there's so much to be said and so much to talk about. It's impossible to squeeze it all in one video. So we're going to continue this discussion. Please stay tuned to our channel and follow us on YouTube for an update for the next episode in our discussion of the flat Earth phenomenon. The great philosopher Plato famously said, "Astronomy compels the soul to look upward and leads us from this world to another." Astronomy for Change is a non-profit organization whose mission is to effect positive change through astronomy and science education. It is our belief that by inspiring and empowering current and future generations to become interested and engaged in astronomy and science, this positive change will be realized. If you found this video helpful and educational, please like, subscribe, and share. Also, why not consider supporting us on Patreon? Head over to our homepage, astronomyforchange.org, click Support Us via PayPal or Patreon, and choose a membership level suitable for you. Every little bit helps us produce the great content and further our mission. Also, why not consider becoming a member? Membership is free at Astronomy for Change. Choose the membership link here, click it, Put your name and your first name and your email, and you'll be added to our list. You'll receive a comprehensive digest of all our videos and articles and all our great content. Joining and becoming a patron helps us grow and improve and more fully realize our mission. Thank you. This is Dr. Jim Daly for Astronomy for Change. Until the next video, please stay well and keep looking up.